Welcome to Under Baobab Skies, under the hush of the evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the forest canopy with molten gold. The coast of pre-colonial Ghana begins to breathe in whispers. Here, the air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and resin, mingling with the soft, sweet smoke of ritual fires. It is a world both sacred and perilous, unfolding beneath the shadow of ancient trees and beside the curves of winding rivers. This is the world of the Fante gold-weighing priests. These men, guardians of glittering wealth, stand at the delicate crossroads of mortal ambition and divine decree. Here, gold is not merely metal. It is a living force, a luminous essence that carries the gaze of ancestors and the judgment of spirits. Every single grain tells a story. Each nugget bears a warning. To touch it is to dance with danger. To weigh it is to invite both reverence and envy. The priest, wrapped in his carefully woven cloth and adorned with sacred amulets, moves through the marketplace with a measured grace. He is acutely aware that a single misstep could summon calamity. Rivals lurk in shadowed corners, traders' eyes glint with cold calculation, and every ceremonial act carries the profound weight of life or death. In this quiet, rhythmic life, the pulse of the coast is felt in shimmering gold dust, whispered prayers, and the subtle tension of ritual. The priest's hands might tremble, but not from fear. It is the immense weight of his responsibility. He is both a servant and a sovereign in a domain invisible to most, wielding an authority that is felt more than it is seen. His scale, delicate and precise, measures not only the gold but also the trust, devotion and jealousy that surrounds him. Each coin or nugget laid upon it is more than just wealth. It is a covenant, an offering, a silent negotiation with forces both earthly and spiritual. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine the fire crackling gently as the night breathes around us. The path to becoming a master goldweigher, a *psychopho*, is neither quick nor easy. Apprentices watch for years, learning to read the glimmer of gold just as a sailor reads the signs in the wind. They learn that the purest gold isn't always the brightest, and that a stone's heft can deceive. Poisoned gifts might arrive with the morning tide, a seemingly generous offering laced with unseen malice. A careless judgment, a moment of distraction, could tip the scales toward tragedy, igniting a feud that could last for generations. Yet, the priest moves with a quiet certainty, as if guided by an invisible hand. The rhythm of his work mirrors the very heartbeat of the land. Slow, deliberate, and profoundly steady, the forest itself seems to conspire in this theater of gold. Birds call from hidden branches, their songs punctuating the sacred chants. Leaves shimmer as if dusted with tiny sparks of light, reflecting the wealth that flows unseen beneath the canopy. The distant echoes of traders' voices from foreign shores mix with the rhythmic beating of drums and the low hum of ritual. In these moments, the lines between the living and the ancestral blur. The priest does not merely weigh gold, he interprets its story, its omens, and its unseen burdens. He listens to the metal, feeling its history, its journey from the earth to his hands. This sacred life extends through the quiet streets and shadowed halls of the coastal towns. A gold coin exchanged, a nugget passed between hands, a scale carefully adjusted. All of these simple actions carry a meaning far beyond their physical presence. They bind families, seal treaties, and sometimes they break them. As night deepens, the priest retreats to his private sanctuary. Here, incense curls upward toward the rafters, and the whispers of ancestors guide his hand in the flickering lamplight. In this profound stillness, he contemplates the hidden threads connecting wealth, power, and mortality. He communes with the spirits who guard the gold, seeking their wisdom and protection for his community. The coast sleeps with an uneasy serenity, knowing that gold, while a blessing, is also a silent and constant threat. Through the centuries, these men have walked the fine line between reverence and danger, shaping not only the economy, but the very culture that surrounds them. Their influence is woven into proverbs, into art, into the moral fabric of their society. They were the bankers, the judges, and the spiritual conduits of their time. And tonight, as you listen, perhaps beneath the stars, you are invited to step quietly into their world, to sense the incredible weight of gold in trembling hands, to feel the hush of ceremonial spaces, and to witness a life lived in constant negotiation with fortune and with fate. The story of Ghana, and indeed much of West Africa, begins here, where the scales balance not just metal, but life itself, and where every whisper carries the echo of ancestral wisdom. You are now under the watchful, calm eyes of the Fante gold-weighing priest. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found this glimpse into history as fascinating as we do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories from our shared past. We'll see you next time. You are now under baobab skies. Now the story begins. Imagine a world where a single grain of gold holds the power of life and death, where a priest's hands don't just measure wealth, but weigh the very souls of men. By the end of this journey, you'll understand the lethal responsibility a Fante gold-weighing priest carries, navigating a treacherous world of envy, poison, and divine judgment, all while performing rituals that determine power, prosperity, and survival itself. Our story begins in the heart of a West African forest. As dawn breaks, the morning begins with ritual. The priest steps into a sacred clearing, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flora. Dew clings heavily to the broad palm fronds, glinting like scattered diamonds in the soft, emerging light. He moves with a deliberate grace, a man who knows this space as intimately as his own skin. Upon a polished wooden table, intricately carved with the stories of his ancestors, he sets out the tools of his sacred trade, the scales. These are not just any scales, they are artifacts of immense power, passed down through generations, their brass and wood worn smooth by the hands of his predecessors. Beside them, he places bowls filled with shimmering gold dust. As the nascent sunlight filters through the dense canopy, each tiny grain catches the light, reflecting centuries of history of trade. Roots that crossed vast deserts of conquests that shaped empires, and of a devotion to gods and ancestors that runs deeper than any gold mine. There is a profound rhythm here, a silent choreography learned through long, arduous years of apprenticeship. He isn't just preparing for a transaction. He is opening a channel to the spiritual world. He places his weathered hands over the scales, not yet touching, but feeling. He feels the inert weight of the metal, the subtle, living vibration of the forest floor, and the almost imperceptible pulse of spirits gathering to watch. This is the calm before the storm, the sacred silence before the weighing begins. The act of weighing is not a simple measurement. It is an invocation. With every minute adjustment of the scales, he whispers the names of the ancestors, calling on their wisdom and protection. He recites ancient charms, words of power meant to ward off deceit and evil intent. He's not just testing the purity of the gold. He is testing the integrity of the human hearts that have gathered around him. In this world, deception is a constant threat. Rival priests or ambitious traders might try to corrupt the process, slipping poisons mixed with the dust or subtle, unseen weights onto the scales. One misjudged gesture, one fleeting lapse of concentration, and a life his own or another's might be forfeit. He is acutely aware of every observer. Their glances are sharp, their minds calculating. A visiting merchant, a man whose reputation for envy and cunning has preceded him, watches the scales with undisguised suspicion. His eyes narrowed, searching for any hint of trickery. The priest's own apprentice lingers at a respectful distance, hands folded within the sleeves of his robe, his young face a mask of concentration. He is absorbing the silent lessons of vigilance, learning that this ritual is as much about reading people as it is about reading the scales. The entire clearing holds its breath. Even the birds in the towering trees seem to fall silent, waiting for the delicate, dangerous ritual to conclude. The priest lifts a small, lustrous gold nugget, its surface smooth and cool. He weighs it between his thumb and forefinger, his touch both sensitive and sure, and whispers a specific incantation. As the words leave his lips, the very air around the table seems to shimmer, and a palpable sense of sacred authority settles over the clearing. The scales, which had been perfectly balanced, now tip slightly. He makes a minute adjustment, his movement economical and precise. In this tiny, almost imperceptible motion, he communicates the judgment of the ancestors. The nugget is true, the trader who brought it is honest, and the ritual is complete for now. But the danger is never far. Poisoned gifts are a constant reality, a common and insidious strategy used by rivals seeking to undermine the priest's credibility or even end his life. These deadly offerings might arrive disguised as tokens of respect or goodwill. He inspects each one with an expert eye, his senses honed by decades of practice. He notes the subtle discolorations that a layman would miss, the faint, unnatural odors that cling to the metal, the unusual feel of it against his skin. This knowledge is intuitive, a deep, cellular understanding of his craft. One false step, one moment of carelessness, could result in death. It might be immediate, a fast-acting toxin that collapses his lungs. Or it could be a slow, agonizing decline, as rival hands manipulate unseen energies to sap his life force from afar. This tension is a constant companion. The priest cannot show fear. He cannot falter. He cannot let the crushing weight of his own mortality sway his hand from its steady, sacred task. And yet, the fear is always there, a quiet and patient presence, lurking like the shadows that stretch and lengthen beneath the trees at dusk. Every single ritual is a high-stakes negotiation, not just with the living, but with the potent, unseen forces that govern this world. The spirits of ancestors and deities who watch the scales as intently as he does. The clearing has become a stage, and the priest, its lead actor. The gold dust sparkles like a tiny, captured constellation. The bowls and scales are not mere tools, but instruments of both immense power and mortal peril. Every movement, every glance, every whispered word is laden with meaning. He now lifts the final nugget of the morning's weighing. He closes his eyes, shutting out the physical world to better connect with the spiritual one, and intones the final blessing. As the ancient words echo softly through the clearing, a wave of relief washes over him. It is brief and tempered, for he knows this is only a temporary reprieve. The stakes have been met, the ritual has been properly observed, and the judgment of the spirits has been delivered. For today, balance has been maintained. But rivalries continue to simmer just beneath the surface, and jealousy, like a persistent ember, glows in the hearts of ambitious men. The complex, dangerous cycle will begin anew with the next dawn. The priest is both a witness and an arbiter, a guardian of gold and a protector of life. This delicate balance, this intricate dance with fate, is the very essence of his existence. Through each carefully measured grain of dust, he touches something eternal, feeling the weight of his ancestors on his shoulders and the pulse of future generations in his hands. As the morning mist slowly recedes from the riverine forests of the Fante coast, a world brimming with subtle life is unveiled. High above, birds gracefully slice through the humid air, their wings carving silent arcs against the pale sky. The gentle, rhythmic lapping of water against the riverbanks provides a constant, soothing soundtrack to the waking world. It is within this living, breathing tapestry that the priest moves. He walks with a deliberate and profound calm, fully aware that in his world, every gesture carries immense weight and every glance can trigger unseen consequences. His path is not always one of peace. Hidden within the shaded corridors of bustling marketplaces and sacred ceremonial spaces, rival priests lurk. They don't engage in open conflict. Their methods are far more subtle, wrapped in layers of deception and cunning. A gift, seemingly offered in tribute, might be laced with danger. A small, gleaming nugget of gold, a beautifully crafted bowl of beads, or a simple token from a merchant seeking a blessing could conceal a threat. The priest, whose training has sharpened his senses to perceive the faintest of inconsistencies, must examine each offering with the dual perspective of a scholar and a sentinel. He can discern hidden danger from the very scent of the metal, the unusual weight of the gold, or even the subtle vibration that travels through his fingertips upon contact. Let's pause for a moment. The fire crackles gently as the night breathes around us. This vigilance extends to every ritual, from the smallest, most personal weighing to the grandest public ceremony. The priest's movements are a study in disciplined elegance as he lifts the scales, carefully adjusts the weights, and murmurs the ancient blessings. Each shift of his body is almost imperceptible, yet it reflects decades of rigorous training. His apprentices watch him intently, their eyes wide with concentration, their hands poised to one day emulate his every move. They understand that these gestures are not merely practical. They are a sacred language, a complex code written in the motion of body and mind, connecting the physical world to the spiritual. Enemies in this world rarely announce themselves with open hostility. Instead, jealousy festers quietly, a slow-acting poison woven into the fabric of casual conversations. Fleeting glances and seemingly innocent gestures. A trader might try to obscure the true quality of their gold dust. A rival might subtly tamper with the ceremonial tools, or whispers of disfavor could be spread like wildfire across the marketplace. To navigate these treacherous currents, the priest must combine his sharp intuition with unwavering rigor, blending sacred ritual with constant vigilance. A single false judgment, one overlooked anomaly, could unleash misfortune not just upon himself, but upon his entire family and the community that depends on him. His hands, both steady and incredibly sensitive, move with meticulous care. He lifts a gleaming nugget and places it gently upon the scale, allowing it to settle into the delicate balance of his judgment. A faint shimmer of sunlight, filtering through the dense canopy of palm fronds, illuminates the fine gold dust. As he works, he whispers protective incantations, invoking the spirits of his ancestors. These are not passive observers. They are powerful entities who demand respect, clarity, and unwavering adherence to sacred law. For the priest, weighing gold is not a simple transaction. It is an act of interpreting the will of the unseen, a negotiation between the material and spiritual realms. Let's pause for a moment. The fire crackles gently as the night breathes around us. Precision in these rituals is absolutely paramount. The priest's gestures are deliberate and unhurried, yet every single movement is charged with profound intent. A slight misalignment of the scales, a slip of the hand, or a hastily spoken word could invite the wrath of the spirits. provoke the anger of rivals, or bring a wave of misfortune upon the traders and the entire town. Apprentices commit each motion to memory, carefully noting the subtle shifts in his stance, the precise cadence of his speech, and the sacred rhythm of his invocations. Even a casual observer, completely unaware of the underlying tension, might sense the gravity in the air, a quiet, almost suffocating weight that drapes over every ceremonial act. Viewed through this lens, every day becomes a delicate negotiation. The priest is tasked with weighing not just gold, but also the hidden intentions, festering envy, and unseen currents of power that flow through his community. The small bowls and fine scales, simple objects to an outsider, become instruments of fate in his hands. They are the tools through which the destiny of individuals and entire communities is subtly mediated. Traders leave their offerings, their eyes a mixture of caution and calculation, knowing full well that the priest's judgment is final, and that his insight often extends far beyond what is visible to the naked eye. An apprentice, his face a mask of concentration, steps forward. He tentatively reaches out to touch a scale, aiming to align a weight with perfect accuracy. The priest's eyes, sharp and discerning, follow his every movement, ready to correct, to guide, or to intervene if necessary. In this sacred space, trust is not given freely. It is earned slowly through immense patience, careful observation, and unwavering adherence to ritual. Yet even the most obedient and dedicated pupil can falter, and when they do, the consequences ripple outward, touching not only their own life, but also threatening the fragile equilibrium of the town and the sanctity of the space in which they work. Enemies constantly seek to disrupt this delicate balance through subtle and insidious strategies. A misplaced coin, a seemingly insignificant imbalance in a scale, or even a whispered rumor can be enough to set long-standing rivalries aflame. The priest must learn to anticipate these actions as if he were reading the currents of the wind, interpreting the hidden meaning in every gesture, every word, and every shadow that falls across his path. In this world, the line separating life and death, loyalty and betrayal, is as thin and fragile as the thread suspending a gold weight in perfect equilibrium. Yet, despite the constant pressure and hidden dangers, the priest moves with a calm and assured mastery. There is a quiet, steady rhythm to his work, a beautiful harmony between his ceaseless vigilance and his inherent grace. The ceremonial incantations hum softly in the air, the scales swing with precise and unwavering intent, and the ancient forest itself seems to lean closer, observing, bearing silent witness to the sacred balance he maintains. Here, amidst the threat of poison, the sting of rivalry, and the immense weight of his ancestors' expectations, he fulfills his sacred role with a measured heart and a steady, unwavering hand. As the sun climbs higher over the Fante coast, the marketplace begins to buzz. But it's a quiet hum, a muted rhythm of barter and cautious glances. Here, a priest moves between the shadows, acutely aware of both the visible and invisible currents that shape his world. Every merchant, every person passing by, carries their own stories, their own motives, and secrets some as heavy and volatile as the gold he's about to weigh. In this delicate lattice of trust and suspicion, he navigates with eyes sharpened by years of vigilance, his mind attuned to the whisper of unseen forces. Today, we'll explore the complex balance between life, spirituality, and commerce that governs a gold-weighing priest's existence. Every single decision carries immense consequences. A misjudged nugget of gold could mean death. A poorly read gesture could cost favor or provoke a dangerous envy. The priest's duty is a constant negotiation with both the mortal and the divine realms. His movements, though subtle and precise, hold the weight of generations. The gold scales themselves are far more than simple tools. They are profound symbols of justice and foresight. Each nugget placed upon them represents immense labor, fragile trust, and significant risk. As the priest lifts, balances, and measures, he is reading both the metal and the motive of the person before him. He's discerning the quality of the gold, yes, but also the intent of the merchant and the hidden tensions that simmer among them. You can feel the shadows of rivals lingering nearby, their eyes fixed on him, observing, waiting for a single slip, just one moment of distraction. Yet, the priest's focus is unwavering, deeply grounded in ancient ritual tradition, and the silent counsel of his ancestors who watch over him. His every action is a testament to the discipline required to maintain order in a world so fiercely driven by wealth. Let's pause for a moment. The fire crackles gently as the night breathes around us. Imagine being in his position, the weight of an entire community's trust resting on your shoulders. It's a responsibility that transcends simple economics. It's a spiritual calling. Behind him, his apprentices move quietly, carrying small bowls of precious gold dust. Their hands are steady, yet you can see the caution in their every move. Each step they take is both a lesson and a test. The priest's guidance is strict, but always measured. He is shaping not just their technical skill, but their deep understanding of responsibility, respect, and the ever-present danger that shadows this sacred profession. Every gesture, from the careful aligning of a scale to the soft reciting of a chant, reinforces the invisible structure that maintains balance in a world built on precious metal and powerful human ambition. These apprentices aren't just learning a trade. They're being initiated into a lineage, inheriting a sacred trust that has been passed down for centuries. The knowledge they gain isn't just about weight and value, but about people, power, and the spiritual forces that govern them all. The threats he faces are rarely overt or obvious. You won't see a drawn weapon in the open marketplace. Instead, jealous rivals employ subtle machinations, hidden within the normal rhythm of the market or woven into the cadence of a ceremonial speech. A poorly timed word, a distracted glance, or an unchecked moment of curiosity can invite untold harm. The priest's true wisdom lies in his ability to perceive these threats before they can manifest, understanding that the sacred and the secular are constantly intermingling in ways that are often imperceptible to an untrained eye. His presence is a calm, steadying force in the midst of this tension. Una, living bridge between the raw pull of mortal greed and the unshakable authority of spiritual law. He has to be a psychologist, a diplomat, and a spiritual guardian all at once. As the day stretches on, so do the layers of observation, calculation, and ritual. The work is relentless. Traders continue to approach, bringing offerings. Some are sincere gestures of respect and honest commerce. Others are laced with deceit, attempts to test his skill or corrupt his judgment. The priest touches, examines, weighs, and blesses each offering. Every motion is deliberate, every decision carefully measured against years of experience and ancestral wisdom. This is not a mere profession. It is a sacred calling, a continuous act of balancing life, death, and destiny on the knife edge of his scales. The forest that surrounds them, the bustling market, the spirits of the ancestors all are observing. It feels as though even the wind carries whispers of caution, of advice, and the sensation of unseen eyes watching from afar, judging his every move. Let's pause for a moment. The fire crackles gently as the night breathes around us. Think about the mental and spiritual fortitude required to perform this duty, day in and day out, without a single mistake. It's a level of focus that is almost superhuman. In the late afternoon, as the heat begins to subside, the priest retreats to the shaded sanctuary of his ceremonial hut. Here, the scales are meticulously cleaned, the weights are checked and rechecked, and the rituals are renewed for the next day. The shadows lengthen, bringing with them a quiet awareness of vulnerability and a moment for reflection on another day survived. Secrets remain hidden in the folds of his cloth and in the tiny crevices of his ritual instruments. His apprentices watch, learning the true gravity of this unseen responsibility. They absorb the palpable tension between mortality and duty, and begin to understand the invisible threads of tradition, trust, and risk that weave their entire community together. This quiet time is as crucial as the work in the market. It's where the spiritual tools are resharpened and the guardian's resolve is fortified. By dusk, the marketplace finally empties. The sounds of commerce fade, replaced by the chirping of insects and the rustle of leaves. The priest steps back onto the forested path, his hands now light but his heart heavy with the responsibilities of the day. Every scale he balanced, every threat he anticipated, every incantation he recited ensures that this sacred practice continues unbroken, and that both the gold and the lives it touches maintain their delicate, precarious equilibrium. In the quiet hush of the evening, the priest breathes deeply, fully aware that tomorrow will bring new challenges, new threats, and new tests of both his skill and his spirit. The cycle is endless. This is a glimpse into a day steeped in ritual, vigilance, and the quiet, enduring tension of a sacred responsibility. The gold-weighing priest walks among shadows and light, constantly balancing both the tangible and the invisible worlds. His presence is a calm yet unyielding force in a landscape defined by breathtaking beauty, hidden danger, and the profound guidance of his ancestors. The air thickens with incense as the story of Unokan unfolds, a tale carried on the wind across forest paths, through bustling market squares, and into sacred groves. Unoki, the wise and mystical priest-statesman, holds a vision that transcends the gleam of mere gold. In his mind, the golden stool is more than just a seat of kingship. It is the very soul of the Ashanti people, a sacred emblem binding heaven, earth, and all who dwell between. Every plan he conceives, every ritual he performs, every subtle maneuver he undertakes is meticulously directed toward the realization of this grand vision. The legend of the Golden Stool appears first in whispers, in hushed conversations exchanged between village elders and town leaders. Rumors begin to circulate, speaking of a seat that embodies the ancestors, a throne that carries within it the very essence of unity and power. Unok moves quietly through this landscape of anticipation, commanding respect not through force, but through profound insight, sacred ritual, and the undeniable weight of unseen authority. His hands, steeped in the ancient knowledge of symbols, scales, and sacred patterns, expertly manipulate the threads of influence and faith, weaving disparate communities together under the powerful promise of a shared destiny. Let's pause for a moment. Listen. The fire crackles gently as the night breathes around us. The stool itself is far more than wood and metal. It is said to have descended from the sky, a divine gift from the ancestors, borne upon the winds of celestial favor. To touch it is to connect with generations past and future, to feel the very heartbeat of a people reflected in its polished surfaces and sacred carvings. Unoki, acutely aware of its immense potency, guards the process of its creation with meticulous, unwavering care. Every single step, From the careful selection of the timber to the precise inscribing of sacred marks carries its own ceremonial weight. Apprentice priests and master artisans alike labor under his watchful guidance, balancing technical precision with deep spiritual reverence. Of course, the politics of power intertwine seamlessly with the sacred. Rivals, both within and outside Ashanti territories, sense the emergence of a force far greater than a mere king. They see a spiritual consolidation that could unify clans and intimidate adversaries like never before. Anoki's genius lies in his subtlety. He allows the stool's symbolic power to precede the consolidation of military and political authority. As messages ripple through towns and villages, the golden stool becomes both a promise and a warning, a focal point for unwavering loyalty and profound devotion. The priest-statesman's interventions are precise, almost surgical. He orchestrates ceremonies that masterfully merge spectacle with sanctity, creating powerful moments where entire communities feel the palpable presence of the divine. Music, dance, incantations, and offerings all blend into a living, breathing ritual, where each note and every gesture reinforces the seat's mystical aura. Traders, villagers, and courtiers all bear witness. Some are skeptical, others are reverent. Yet all of them recognize the emergence of an entity that commands attention far beyond its physical form. Let's pause once more. The fire crackles, a steady rhythm in the quiet of the night. Anoki's role extends far beyond ceremonial oversight. He becomes an advisor, a strategist, and a visionary, actively shaping the very narrative of kingship and sovereignty for the Ashanti people. The golden stool, while a single object, comes to embody a complex web of social, political, and spiritual dynamics. To protect it, to elevate it, is to weave together lineage, belief, and loyalty into a magnificent tapestry of enduring authority. The priest's interventions, often subtle and unseen, maintain a delicate equilibrium while ensuring the stool's power remains both sacred and utterly unassailable. Through these sacred acts, Anoki transforms a single object into a living, breathing force. The stool communicates with ancestors, it inspires deep reverence, and it consolidates unwavering loyalty. For those who witness its ascent, there is a profound sense of awe, a recognition of a new epoch dawning in Ashanti history and era, where the spiritual, the political, and the communal are forever inseparable. The priest's true mastery lies in his profound understanding that power is neither taken nor granted lightly. It is earned, it is observed, and it is sanctified through ritual, wisdom, and patient, masterful orchestration. The forest whispers in the wind as Anok concludes his ceremonies for the day. Leaves rustle with what sounds like quiet approval. Shadows deepen along the sacred pathways, and the collective pulse of the people synchronizes subtly with the rhythm of his vision. The golden stool, now more than ever, is a Bikana promise of unity, a stark warning to rivals, and a tangible connection to the ancestors who watch and guide from unseen realms. Thus begins the era of the golden stool, a symbol as heavy with spiritual gravity as any gold nugget weighed by the meticulous hands of Fante priests. And within this era, Anoki's role is both quiet and monumental, his actions shaping the course of history through reverence, insight, and the unyielding weight of sacred duty. In the heart of the Ashanti lands, a vast forest canopy stretches out like the roof of a great cathedral. Dappled sunlight filters through the dense leaves, illuminating paths worn smooth by the feet of countless generations. It is within this sacred space that Anok walks. His steps are deliberate, his mind a deep well of ancestral stories and the urgent need to unite his people. who stand on the very edge of a new beginning. The golden stool, now the undeniable symbol of divine kingship, has become the focal point where myth, magic, and political strategy all converge. Every story, every chant, every whispered secret of the ancestors is woven into the very fabric of Anoki's grand strategy. The legends of past kings, the spirits of the land, and the power of sacred relics all guide his decisions. These aren't just stories told around a fire. They shape the morale of warriors and elders, and they secure the loyalty of towns and villages scattered throughout the forest. It is said that when he steps onto the earth, the spirits themselves walk alongside him. Their presence is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet potent enough to instill courage, respect, and a sense of obedience in all who encounter him. Anoki's magic is never for show. It's not about flashy displays or ostentatious miracles. It is calculated, deliberate, and deeply intertwined with the rituals of governance. He performs his most important rites at nightfall, under the protective branches of ancient trees, where the hum of insects and the gentle rustle of leaves create a sacred, rhythmic cadence. Here, in the quiet of the night, he invokes the wisdom of the ancestors, seeking their counsel for the unification of clans that have been fractured for far too long by rivalry, mistrust, and competing ambitions. Each ritual is a careful step towards consolidating power, a masterful blend of spiritual authority and practical, far-sighted political thinking. The process of unification itself is a delicate dance of negotiation, persuasion, and, when necessary, a touch of subtle intimidation. Anoki uses symbolic acts to communicate his vision. He presents sacred relics to remind people of their shared heritage, recites ancestral myths to stir their collective soul, and orchestrates public ceremonies that communicate both promise and consequence. He draws clan leaders and local chiefs into a shared vision, helping them understand that loyalty to the Golden Stool is loyalty to the very spirit of the Ashanti people. Resistance, therefore, carries not just social and political costs, but spiritual ramifications that no one dares to risk. The Golden Stool embodies this authority completely. Its presence is a constant, shimmering reminder of the interwoven strands of myth, magic, and governance. Those who look upon it sense more than just wood and gold. They feel the pulse of their ancestors, the immense weight of their history, and the undeniable pull of a unified destiny. Anoki moves among these diverse communities, a patient mediator of disputes, a settler of old grievances, and a subtle shaper of perceptions. Every gesture he makes, every word he speaks, every incantation he utters is another carefully placed stone in the foundation of a unified Ashanti identity. Warriors, priests, and common folk alike are not just spectators, they are active participants in this unfolding ritual of unification. Festivals filled with song, dance, and offerings to the ancestors punctuate the periods of intense negotiation. These celebrations reinforce the spiritual significance of the political decisions being made, turning a political process into a sacred journey. Anoki's presence is central to it all. He is both a witness to their commitment and the conductor of this grand orchestra, ensuring that each act, each note, resonates with deeper, ancestral truths. Even those who are skeptical of magic can't help but feel its influence. They recognize that in this land, the boundaries between the seen and the unseen are fluid, and that the sanction of the ancestors is a force to be both feared and revered. As alliances begin to solidify and old rivalries are tempered by this new, shared belief, the Ashanti people experience a profound and fundamental shift. The myths of their past are becoming their present reality. The magic of their faith is becoming the structure of their governance. The golden stool is no longer merely a symbol, it has become the very axis upon which their loyalty, their culture, and their power now revolve. Anoki's careful, masterful blending of spiritual practice and sharp political acumen ensures that the stool's authority extends far beyond mere ceremony. It embeds itself in the very consciousness of a people now prepared to embrace unity and a powerful collective destiny. As dusk begins to settle, the air grows heavy and still. Anok concludes the day's rituals. The shadows lengthen over the villages and forests, carrying with them the stories of triumphs won and lessons learned. The process of unification continues, subtle yet relentless, guided by the voices of ancestors, the power of sacred objects, and the deliberate, steady hand of a priest whose understanding of human nature is as profound as his mastery of the divine. Through this intricate web of myth, magic, and governance, the Ashanti nation slowly but surely begins to coalesce. Its people find themselves bound not just by allegiance to a king, but by a deep reverence for the sacred instrument of their unity, the golden stool. Each chant they sing, each ritual they perform, each council session they attend moves them closer to becoming a society where spiritual authority and political power are inseparable. It's a society where loyalty is earned through devotion, and where the guiding presence of the divine is felt in every single choice. The story of Unoked and the Golden Stool is one of subtle power, of sacred strategy, and of an influence that endures through centuries. It's a tale that resonates far beyond the forest glades, the bustling marketplaces, and the royal halls of Kumasi. It is a story embedded in the very identity of the Ashanti people, a powerful reminder to all who listen that magic, myth, and governance are simply different threads of the same intricate, beautiful tapestry. The priest's work is never truly complete. Each new day offers new challenges, new opportunities to harmonize the spiritual with the temporal, and to ensure that the unity of the nation remains both sacred and unbroken. As the smoke from ritual fires curls into the evening sky, Okomfo Anoki's great work enters its most delicate phase, consolidation. Here, in the ceremonial heart of Kumasi, the golden stool exerts a silent but unyielding force. Chiefs, warriors, and elders gather around it, sensing the gravity of the moment. This is where political boundaries, spiritual influence, and social cohesion intersect, all guided by the subtle hand of a priest who knows the very pulse of his people. By the end of our time together, you'll understand how sacred authority solidifies power through a combination of ritual precision, ancestral symbolism, and carefully orchestrated public perception. Anoki's genius wasn't just in creating awe. It was in embedding that awe into the very structures of governance and daily life. Every gesture of homage, every chant sung in this clearing, every offering of incense reinforces the spiritual legitimacy of leadership while binding communities together. The consolidation process unfolds gradually, almost like the slow blooming of a rare flower. It isn't a sudden conquest, but a gentle, pervasive weaving of influence. Small communities begin to pledge their allegiance to the golden stool, not through force, but through acts of devotion, both public and private. Imagine artisans in their workshops, meticulously crafting miniature stools. These aren't just trinkets. They are tangible symbols of their personal connection to this new, divine mandate. Elsewhere, warriors rehearse their ceremonial duties. They learn to bow, to chant, to march in perfect unison, their movements becoming a physical expression of their loyalty. Even the bustling markets begin to feel the stool's influence. You see it in the way traders and farmers conduct their business, acknowledging its unseen authority in their transactions. Debts are honored with a new sense of sacred duty, and promises are fulfilled as if witnessed by the ancestors themselves. This isn't just about politics. It's a moral and spiritual realignment that touches every corner of Ashanti life. The rituals reach their apex during the full moon. The forest glows silver, and the air hums with the deep resonance of drums, the haunting melody of flutes, and the whispered invocations of the priests. It is here that Anoki demonstrates the golden stool's true sanctity. He shows the people that it is not merely an emblem of a king's power, but a spiritual anchor, a conduit connecting the living with the ancestors who guide, protect, and judge them. Every act is deliberate and filled with meaning. The careful placement of sacred oils on ceremonial objects, the rhythmic, reverent circling of the stool by the chief's each movement reinforces the cohesion of the nation. It publicly affirms the authority of the king, not as a conqueror, but as one sanctioned by the divine. The stool becomes the focal point, the still center around which the new Ashanti world turns. But the subtleties of this newfound authority extend far beyond grand spectacle. Anok becomes a key advisor to the king, not just on spiritual matters, but on justice and governance. He uses ritual to validate decisions that might otherwise provoke dissent or argument among the powerful chiefs. When a difficult judgment is passed, it is done in the presence of the golden stool. Imbuing the decision with the weight of ancestral sanction, who would dare argue with the will of the spirits? The golden stool is present at every key moment. When warriors take oaths of allegiance, when elders gather to settle disputes between villages, the stool is there, a silent, powerful witness. Its presence transforms a simple meeting into a sacred covenant. Even in distant villages, far from the capital, people are aware of the stool's existence. They begin to align their local governance with its symbolic power, creating a vast, interconnected network of influence that spans territory, lineage, and time itself. Of course, this sacred authority does not go untested. Rivals, both within the Ashanti lands and beyond their borders, occasionally challenge its legitimacy. They see it as a political trick, a clever manipulation. Yet Anoki's strategic use of ritual and the invisible threads of myth ensures that any opposition is minimized before it can gain traction. He establishes grand festivals, public offerings, and private divinations that constantly reinforce the perception that the stool embodies more than just kingship, embodies the moral and spiritual order of the entire world. To challenge the stool is to challenge the very fabric of reality. Through these measures, consolidation solidifies. The change happens not just in the halls of power, but in the hearts and minds of the people. The population, having witnessed and actively participated in these powerful rituals, internalizes their loyalty. It becomes a part of their identity. The chiefs and warriors, having seen the stool's unifying power firsthand, commit themselves to its authority with renewed vigor, and the communities, having engaged in their own acts of devotion, feel a deep spiritual obligation to preserve the new order it represents. Anoki's careful orchestration ensures that both visible and invisible threads bind the people together. It creates a society where sacred authority underpins governance. And effective governance, in turn, sustains a vibrant communal life. It's a perfect, self-reinforcing cycle of power, faith, and unity. As dusk finally yields to the deep, velvet night, the priest observes the unified Ashanti territories with a quiet, profound satisfaction. The golden stool, bathed in the warm, flickering torchlight, reflects not only the sheen of polished wood and inlaid gold, but something far more precious: the unity of a people and the triumph of a sacred strategy. Anoki knows that the stool's influence is not a static achievement, but an ongoing process. Each new ritual, each oath sworn, each act of homage extends the circle of consolidation, drawing more people into its embrace. The sacred and the political are now inseparable, and the Ashanti people are bound together under an authority that is both visible to the eye and sanctioned by the heavens. Thus concludes the story of the rise and consolidation of the golden stoolan, emblem of sacred power, political genius, and communal unity. Through ritual, myth, and the meticulous guidance of Okomfo Anoki, the Ashanti nation achieved a cohesion, stability, and a legacy that would echo through generations to come. It stands as a powerful testament to the intertwined nature of spirituality and governance, a lesson on how belief can build an empire. Deep within the forested heart of Bannerman, long shadows stretch across ancient pathways. Here, the very earth seems to hum with a secret, vibrant energy. Beneath the tangled roots and rich soil, veins of gold twist and turn like subterranean rivers, guarded not by stone walls or armed sentinels, but by the whispered lore passed down through countless generations. This is a world far from modern machinery, a realm of tradition, intuition, and raw courage. Imagine young miners, their bodies lithe and strong, descending into the cool, damp darkness. Their hands, slick with a mixture of sweat and earth, grip simple, time-tested tools. They are not guided by geological surveys or advanced equipment, but by something far older, an ancestral intuition, a deep-seated feeling for the land, and a healthy dose of cautious superstition. Every step into the earth is a step into the unknown, a journey into a space both revered and feared. ULL grasp the perilous balance that defines life in these hidden gold mines. A delicate tightrope walk between immense wealth, profound secrecy, and the constant struggle for survival. Each strike of the pickaxe, each careful scoop of earth, is a gamble. It carries the promise of prosperity, the dream of a better life, but it also carries the immediate threat of danger. These mines are fraught with peril, from cleverly disguised poisoned traps set by rival factions to the ever-present spectre of disease that thrives in the close, humid conditions. For these miners, every single day is a negotiation with mortality itself. Let's pause for a moment. Can you hear it? The fire crackles gently, its flames dancing in the encroaching darkness as the night breathes softly around us. These are not just holes in the ground. They are sacred sites, woven into the spiritual fabric of the community. Before any miner dares to break the earth, a ritual must be performed. Offerings are made to the local spirits who are believed to watch over the land. These might be small sacrifices, a portion of food, a libation of palm wine, or a piece of colorful cloth left at the mine's entrance to seek permission, to ensure safe passage, and to request a fruitful extraction. As they prepare to descend, miners whisper prayers into the darkness, their voices soft but fervent. They call upon the ancestors, the guardians of their lineage, to protect their hands from injury, their eyes from the cloying dark, and their hearts from the corrupting influence of greed. The mine is a paradox, a source of life-giving sustenance, and a realm where the unseen world exerts its undeniable power. Life in the mines is undeniably brutal. The physical toll is immense. Muscles scream with effort, backs are perpetually bent in labor, and the fine, golden dust, the very object of their search, clings to their skin, their clothes, their lungs. It becomes a part of them. Yet, within this grueling struggle, there is a rhythm, a pulse that beats in time with tradition. This is the heartbeat of a society that depends entirely on the careful extraction, measurement, and protection of its most precious resource. It's a cycle of hardship and hope. The elders, the keepers of knowledge, play a crucial role. They teach the young miners not just the practical techniques of extraction, how to read the rock, where to dig, how to support the tunnels, but also the vital oral histories of the mines. These are stories passed down in the dim torchlight, tales of powerful spirits, of legendary rivalries between clans, and of sacred guardians that protect the gold. These narratives are more than just folklore. They are a living repository of warnings and guidance for all who dare to enter the Earth's embrace. Let's pause again and listen. The fire crackles, a steady, comforting sound against the quiet hum of the forest night. The gold, once painstakingly extracted from these hidden veins, does not travel along open roads. Its journey is as secret as its origin. It moves along clandestine routes, pathways known only to a select few, the most trusted messengers. Each nugget, each flake of shimmering metal, is heavy with more than just its own weight. It carries the weight of ritual, the sweat of immense labor, and the profound responsibility of safeguarding not just a community's wealth, but its very life and lineage. The miners understand a fundamental truth that often eludes the outside world. The earth demands respect. They know that unchecked greed invites catastrophe, and that the spirits, the unseen guardians, observe every hand that lifts a shard of gold from its resting place. As night falls completely over Bannerman, a deep quiet descends upon the mines. The sounds of digging and scraping fade away, replaced by the nocturnal symphony of the forest. All that remains is a faint echo of pick against stone, a sound that seems to resonate through the ground itself, like a persistent, rhythmic heartbeat deep within the forest floor. In the dark, narrow corridors, miners gather. Their torches cast flickering shadows on the earthen walls as they whisper to one another. They share advice on a promising new vein, warnings about a weakening tunnel support, and fragments of the ancient knowledge that binds them together. In these quiet moments, the sacred and the practical dimensions of their work merge seamlessly, ensuring that this vital tradition continues unbroken from one generation to the next. Let's take another moment. Feel the warmth of the fire. Hear it crackle and pop, a beacon of light in the vast, breathing darkness. This intricate interplay of labor, ritual, and secrecy is what truly defines the hidden gold mines of Bannerman. This is not simply a commercial enterprise. Wealth is extracted not merely for trade or tribute, but as a profound spiritual endeavor. It's a delicate weaving of human effort and cosmic order, a partnership between the miners and the world of spirits. The lives of these individuals, the very structure of their villages, and the authority of the Fante priests all intersect and find meaning here deep beneath the forest canopy, in these sacred places where the earth keeps its most precious secrets held close to its heart. It is a world built on balance, the balance between taking and giving back, between physical strength and spiritual reverence, between the visible world of rock and dust and the invisible world of ancestors and spirits. The gold itself is more than a commodity. It is a sacred substance, imbued with the power of the earth and the blessings of the spirits. To possess it is to hold a responsibility, to be a custodian of a power that can build or destroy. The miner's connection to the land is profound. They don't see the forest and the mines as separate entities. They are one and the same. The trees provide the wood to support their tunnels. The plants provide medicinal remedies for their ailments. And the spirits of the forest provide the spiritual protection they need to face the dangers below. This holistic worldview is the key to their survival and their success. They are not conquering the earth. They are working in harmony with it. Think of the trust required for such an operation to exist. Trust between the young miner and the elder teaching him. Trust between the men working side by side in a narrow tunnel. And trust in the messengers who carry the wealth back to the community. This entire system is built on a foundation of shared belief and mutual reliance, a stark contrast to the individualistic pursuit of wealth we often see elsewhere. Here, wealth is communal, and so is the danger. Everyone has a role, and everyone shares in the outcome, whether it is a bountiful find or a tragic loss. The traditions surrounding the mines also serve as a form of social control. The stories of spirits punishing the greedy or blessing the respectful are powerful tools for maintaining order and ensuring that the community's resources are managed wisely. It's a system of ethics and laws communicated not through written codes, but through compelling narratives that are etched into the consciousness of every member of the society. As our fire begins to burn low and the first hints of dawn prepare to touch the sky, we are left with a powerful image. The image of a world where human life is deeply intertwined with the sacred and the secret. The gold of Bannerman is not just a measure of wealth, but a measure of culture, a testament to the resilience of tradition, and a symbol of the delicate, powerful connection between humanity and the earth. When the miners finally emerged from the deep green of the forest, their baskets heavy with gold-laced soil, a new kind of work, the Ghana process of purification, as sacred and vital as the digging itself. The entire village would seem to hold its breath, its usual calm rhythm shifting into a state of quiet anticipation. This was the moment for the gold-weighing priest. Dusted with sacred chalk and palm ash, his robes carried the weight of his duty as he prepared the ancient scales. His task was not simple arithmetic. It was a form of divine arbitration. In this culture, two-way gold was two-way truth, fairness, and the delicate, invisible balance between the world of humans and the realm of the gods. Each particle of gold, whether fine dust or a solid nugget, was imbued with a story. It spoke of grueling labor, of fervent prayers whispered into the earth, and of the planet's profound generosity. The weighing ceremony always began in a profound, respectful silence. The priest would start to hum a soft, low melody, a call to the ancestors, asking for their guidance and presence. His fingers, remarkably steady, would gently adjust the brass weights. These were no ordinary measures. They were miniature sculptures, crocodiles, birds, or human figures, each one a symbol representing a piece of ancient wisdom. These brass weights were both art and scripture, meticulously shaped by artisans who understood that even something as precise as geometry could hold a deep spiritual meaning. They were a library of proverbs cast in metal, a tangible link to the past. In those tense moments, every eye in the gathering was fixed on the scale. The merchant, who had traveled from afar, waited with a slow, measured heartbeat. The miners, their bodies aching with exhaustion, watched with a mixture of hope and anxiety, but the priest's gaze never wavered. His hand moved with a deliberate slowness that seemed to make time itself hesitate. He would add a grain here, adjust a weight there, his focus absolute. The air would be thick with anticipation until, at long last, the scales balanced perfectly. Hanging in a state of perfect equilibrium, only then could the gold change hands. Only then could this dormant wealth be set into motion, becoming a current in the flow of commerce and life. But this transaction was far more than a simple economic exchange. It was a moral covenant, a solemn promise made before the community and the spirits. To cheat on the scales, to manipulate the weights, or misrepresent the value, was considered a grave offense against the gods. The punishment was believed to be swift and merciless. It could manifest as a sudden sickness that baffled healers, a descent into madness. or even the tragic loss of one's lineage, a curse that would echo through generations. So, you see, the weighing of gold was both a ritual of commerce and a profound test of a person's soul. It was where your integrity was quite literally weighed and measured. The ceremony would often conclude with a libation. The priest would take a calabash of palm wine and pour a small amount onto the earth. This was an act of honoring a Jar, the powerful goddess of fertility and the soil itself. Her domain was vast, stretching from the tilled farmlands that fed the village to the deep mines from which the gold was drawn. She connected every grain of earth to the great cycle of human survival, acting as the intermediary between the people and the divine. The priest would murmur, "Asasia, receive what is rightfully yours." This gesture was a reminder that all wealth ultimately comes from the earth, and a portion must always be given back in gratitude. And then, as the formal ritual concluded, music would rise to fill the air. The deep, resonant beats of the Fante drums would roll through the trading grounds, their sound echoing through the trees. This was an announcement not just of prosperity, but of continuity, a declaration that the community's traditions and spirit endured. The women would begin to dance, their movements a fluid blend of celebration and invocation, their bodies telling stories of gratitude and hope. The children watched with wide, curious eyes, absorbing the entire spectacle. Even before they could fully speak, they were learning a fundamental truth, that gold was so much more than just a glittering metal. It was identity, it was ancestry, and it was power, all bound together in a sacred dance of balance. In these communal gatherings, the Fante and Akan societies continually reinforced a simple yet profound truth. Wealth was only meaningful if it served to maintain harmony within the community. Gold did not belong to the greedy or the individual who amassed it. It belonged to the community that collectively respected the rhythm of balance, both the physical balance on the scales and the spiritual balance in life. It was a shared resource, its value intrinsically linked to the well-being of the whole. As twilight began to settle over the village, casting long shadows and painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the priest would carefully store his sacred tools. He would wrap the scales and the precious brass weights in a clean white cloth, tucking in fragrant herbs to protect their sanctity and keep them pure. His work was done for the day, but the cycle was eternal. Tomorrow, the miners would once again return to the forest, their hopes renewed. The traders would begin their journeys back to the coast, their pouches heavier than before, and the priest would remain ready to perform his sacred duty of weighing not just gold, but the very essence of justice itself. Through these intricate and meaningful rituals, the Fante gold-weighing priest stood at a unique crossroads, a junction where the material world of economy met the timeless realm of eternity. His life was one of immense precision and constant peril. A single false move, one dishonest measure on the scale, could unleash curses that might linger for generations, disrupting the harmony he was sworn to protect. But when his work was done rightly, with integrity and reverence, it shimmered like sunlight on a river, fleeting in the moment, yet eternal in its significance. Profoundly material, yet utterly divine. It was a testament to a people who understood that true value lies not in what you possess, but in the balance you maintain. When the Fante miners of old sank their picks into the rich, red earth, they never did so alone. They were always watched not by other men, but by the forest itself. In Fante belief, every grove, every stream, every whisper of wind through the leaves possessed its own spirit, each one jealous and vigilant. The miners learned a fundamental truth very early on. To extract gold from the ground was to disturb an ancient, sacred covenant. It was a negotiation, not a conquest. And so, Long before the sun's first rays pierced the canopy, you would find them. In the cool, misty air of the Ghanaian rainforest, these miners, clad in simple loincloths, would kneel beside shallow pits. They would whisper prayers into the soil, their voices hushed with reverence, promising gifts to the unseen dwellers below. Small calabashes filled with palm wine would be carefully placed as offerings at the gnarled roots of towering ancient trees. This wasn't just a ritual. It was an acknowledgement of a power far older and greater than their own. The elders would pass down stories, their voices low and serious around the evening fires. They spoke of the Abysmna earth spirits who guarded the glittering veins of gold that snaked through the land. Some of these spirits were gentle, content with simple libations and heartfelt songs of praise. But others were fierce, quick to anger, striking down those who mined with greed in their hearts or who dared to disrespect the sacred groves. Among all the spirits, the most feared was Tano, the spirit of the river that glittered like molten bronze at sunset. Tano was a powerful guardian, and his wrath was legendary. It was said that when angered, he could poison the fish in his waters, cause streams to run dry, and most terrifying of all, for the miners, make the very gold they sought crumble into worthless dust in their hands. It was a world where the spiritual and the material were inextricably linked. The fire crackles gently, and the night breathes around us. Let's just pause for a moment and listen. In the villages, there was a figure of immense importance. The gold-weighing priest. He was far more than a keeper of scales and measures. He was the keeper of peace between the world of men and the world of spirits. He was a diplomat, a bridge between the seen and the unseen. Each moon, as it waxed full in the night sky, he would lead a solemn procession into the forest. Assistants would follow, carrying offerings foul, vibrant bolts of cloth, and baskets filled with precious cowrie shells. They would stop at the base of the oldest, most immense silk cotton tree, a being that had witnessed centuries unfold. As the priest poured a libation of palm wine onto its roots, a stillness would fall over the forest. The rustling leaves would seem to still, and the air would grow thick with the scent of incense and a heavy sense of expectation, as if the entire forest was holding its breath, listening. "Take your share, O spirits of the underearth," the priest would murmur, his voice low and rhythmic, his eyes half closed in a trance-like state. "Leave what we need to live." This was not superstition, not in the way we might think of it today. It was a sophisticated form of diplomacy. The priest and the community he served understood a profound truth. Wealth acquired without gratitude, without acknowledging its source, was a path to ruin. And ruin did come, inevitably, whenever human arrogance replaced reverence for the spirits of the land. The fire crackles, and the night deepens around our story. One such tale of ruin haunted the coast for generations, a cautionary lesson passed from parent to child. It was the story of a miner named Byrampong, a man whose ambition and greed grew far faster than his faith. He was skilled and fortunate, and one day he discovered a deep, rich vein of gold in the forbidden grove near Asina Place the elders had warned was fiercely protected. Ignoring their warnings, Byrampong decided to dig by night under the cover of darkness. He sang as he worked, but his praises were not for the gods or the spirits of the earth. He sang praises to his own strength, his own cleverness, his own ambition. For 3 nights, his baskets overflowed with the glistening metal. He was becoming impossibly rich. But on the 4th night, his song fell silent. When the villagers, worried by his absence, went to look for him, they found a chilling sight. Byrampong was still in the pit he had dug, his body frozen in a kneeling position. His hands, which had so greedily pulled the gold from the earth, were blackened and charred, as if struck by a bolt of lightning from a cloudless sky. And the gold, the beautiful, shining gold he had unearthed, had all turned to plain, lifeless stone. The gold-weighing priest was summoned. After examining the scene, he delivered his solemn judgment. It was a curse, a punishment from the spirits for Byrampong's insatiable pride and disrespect. From that day forward, the forbidden grove near Asin has never been touched again. Its silence is a permanent monument to the perils of greed. The fire crackles gently as the night breathes around us. Let's pause for a moment. In time, stories like Byrampong's became essential lessons. Told to every apprentice miner, they learned that gold wasn't something to be merely found. It had to be earned. Every glimmer of that precious metal represented a delicate negotiation between the world of humans and the world of spirits. The role of the gold-weighing priest, then, was to be a constant, living reminder of these invisible debts. For every piece of gold that was weighed on his brass scales, there was a shadow debt owed back to the land, a debt of gratitude and respect. The miners didn't fear the priest because of his earthly authority. They feared him for his deep understanding. He was attuned to the language of the spirits. He knew when the earth was displeased. He saw the signs that others might miss, when the streams began to run dull and listless, when the birds in a particular grove suddenly ceased their singing, or when children in the village mysteriously fell ill right after a rich discovery of gold. These were not coincidences. They were signs that the delicate balance between worlds had been broken, and only the priest, through his knowledge of ancient rites, sacrifice, and true humility, could mend the rupture and restore harmony. He was the anchor of their conscience. As trade with outsiders flourished and the Akan kingdoms grew powerful and fat with gold, the Fante gold-weighing priest remained this quiet, vital anchor. His job went beyond metallurgy. He measured not only the purity of the metal being traded, but also the purity of the intention behind it. It was said that the forest spirits whispered to him in his sleep, guiding his hand when a deceitful merchant tried to tip the scales, or when a miner's heart was clouded by greed. The fire crackles, a gentle rhythm in the deep silence of the night. Let's just pause and listen. In those whispered dreams lived a truth far older than any king or kingdom. Gold was never truly owned. It was borrowed. It was a temporary loan from the earth. For a lifetime, perhaps two. But it always had to be returned, one way or another. Some returned it willingly, through offerings and acts of gratitude. Others had it taken from them, through misfortune, tragedy, and ruin. The wise did not wait to find out which fate awaited them. They gave thanks freely, they gave back generously, and in doing so, they kept the sacred covenant alive. As the fire begins to fade in our story tonight, take a moment to imagine that same gold, still there, glinting faintly beneath the soil of Ghana. It is patient, it is eternal. It remembers every single hand that has ever touched it, every prayer that was ever whispered over it, and every greedy heart that lusted for it. For the spirits do not forget. They only wait for the noise of men to cease, for the silence to fall once again, and for the next prayer, humble and sincere, to rise from the earth. When dawn broke over the Fante coast, it didn't just bring the sun. It found the king's court already shimmering, bathed not in sunlight, but in the soft, warm glow of gold dust. It was everywhere, on every surface, in every gesture. It was a world touched by that glittering metal. The courtiers moved with a deliberate grace, like dancers in a slow, ancient ritual. Their robes, heavy with intricate brocade, whispered against the polished floors. Their speech was as carefully measured as the scales of the priest, who, in another time, might have weighed divine justice itself. This was the world the gold-weighing priest served, a realm caught between opulence and fear. The court was a stage where wealth was both worshipped and watched with hawk-like intensity. It was a place where loyalty wasn't measured in coins, but in secrets weighed daily on the invisible scales of power. In the early mornings, the king would sit upon a low stool exquisitely carved from a single, massive tree trunk. Its surface gleamed, adorned with sheets of beaten gold that caught the first rays of light. On his arms, he wore bracelets shaped like coiled snakes, potent symbols of wisdom and constant vigilance. Around him, his inner circle would gather. There were the linguists, whose ceremonial staffs were topped with the gleaming, carved faces of ancestors, connecting the present court to its powerful past. The wives of nobles would be there too, their hair styled and perfumed with coconut oil and the reddish tint of camwood dust, their presence a subtle display of influence and status. Into this opulent scene, the gold-weighing priest would enter quietly, almost like a shadow. He carried his precious scales carefully wrapped in a swath of pure white cloth. Now, in the court's strict hierarchy, he was technically a servant, but his presence had a weight that bent the very air around him. He alone could touch the sacred dust before it entered the king's treasury. He was the gatekeeper. Every morning, he performed his ritual, testing the gold collected from the mines. He would gently tap the tiny brass weights onto the pans of his scale. These weren't just simple lumps of metal. They were miniature sculptures shaped like crocodiles, birds, and fierce warriors, each with its own specific value and story. He moved with the focus and precision of someone handling fire. Each measure, each flicker of gold dust settling in the pan was a test of truth. A profound silence would stretch thin across the chamber, broken only by the soft, metallic thud of the weights and the whisper of silk robes as courtiers held their breath. When the priest finally nodded, a collective sigh of relief would ripple through the traders. But when he frowned, you could feel men swallowing their fear. The king watched all of this with eyes half-lidded, his face a perfect, unreadable mask. To rule in a land of gold was both a profound blessing and a terrible curse. The very same treasure that fed his people, that built his palaces, could also summon the darkest parts of human nature: greed, betrayal, and the ever-present envy of colonial powers. Whispers traveled through the corridors faster than the trade winds off the coast. There were stories of chiefs tempted by the promise of European muskets, of priests bribed to falsify the purity of the gold, and of envoys who simply disappeared after counting one bar too many. The priest understood better than anyone that every single grain of gold was political. Its weight could tip not just the scales of trade, but the very balance of power within the kingdom. He maintained a serene, impassive face, but his heart often trembled. He knew the true danger wasn't in the deep mines or the bustling markets. It was right here in the palace, where envy wore perfume and smiled at you before it struck. I remember one year, after a particularly abundant harvest from the legendary mines of Bannerman, the king summoned the priest to his private chambers. "You will weigh the tribute yourself," he said, his voice soft but edged with steel. "And you will tell me if my cousin's share is honest." The priest bowed deeply. He knew the danger instantly. To expose deceit from a powerful royal would make him a target. But to hide it would be to betray his duty and anger the gods. That night he knelt before the shrine of the ancestors, burning incense and praying for clarity. In his dream, he saw his scales turning into two great serpents, each biting the other's tail, writhing and twisting until the pans themselves burst into flames. When he awoke in a cold sweat, he understood the message. Gold could not be divided without the risk of blood. The next morning, when he arrived at the weighing chamber, the air was thick with incense and an almost suffocating tension. The king's cousin's tribute was vast, a glittering pile of dust and nuggets. But as the priest poured it onto the scales, the balance quivered strangely, refusing to settle. The gold was impure. It had been mixed with sand, so fine that it deceived even a trained eye. The room fell into a deathly silence as he finally spoke. "This is not gold," he said slowly, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "This is deceit, wearing the clothing of gold." Gasps rippled through the assembled courtiers. The cousin's face hardened into a mask of fury, and the king's eyes darkened. What followed wasn't a swift execution, as some might have expected. It was exile. Even kings feared spilling royal blood too close to the sacred metal, lest it bring a curse upon the kingdom. But from that day on, the priest was marked. His loyalty was revered by some, but his uncompromising honesty was feared by many more. In that glittering, treacherous court, survival depended not on strength, but on silence and subtlety. The priest learned to speak his truth in riddles, to weigh his words even more carefully than he weighed the metal. He understood that his scales, much like life itself, hung precariously in the balance between reverence and ruin. And yet, beneath all the politics and pretense, there were moments of pure, unadulterated wonder. During festivals, the court would open its gates to the people. The sound of drums would roll like thunder across the land, and dancers would swirl in cloth that shimmered like sunlit waves on the ocean. In these moments of celebration, the king would climb to a high balcony and toss handfuls of gold dust into the crowd below. Children would chase the glittering specks as if they were butterflies, their laughter echoing through the courtyard, their faces glowing with pure joy. In those brief, magical hours, the very wealth that so often divided them became something sacred against something shared, if only in spirit. The priest, watching from a distance, would allow himself a faint smile, for even he knew that no matter how corrupt or cruel power became, the music of the people, the primal, unifying pulse of the drum still reminded everyone of the essential balance between taking and giving, between the dust of the earth and the touch of the divine. When the drums grew distant at night and the torches along the courtyard faded into ash, the Fante palace revealed its second life. This wasn't a world of grand ceremony, but one of secrets. The gold dust had settled, but whispers still glowed like embers in the silence. You see, every ruler needs ears beyond his throne. The king's court wasn't just a place of beauty and power. It was a nest of spies, envoys, and poets who spoke in riddles, hiding truths sharper than any blade. The gold-weighing priest, though cautious by nature, was not blind to this hidden world. He often noticed the same faces appearing in different corners of the palace. There was a musician who never seemed to touch his drum, his eyes always scanning the room. There was a scribe who wrote nothing but listened with an intensity that made you uncomfortable. Even the court poet who praised the king's wisdom at dusk might mock him by dawn, weaving criticism into a coded song performed in the bustling market square. The priest understood this delicate dance. To survive in a court gilded by gold but riddled with deceit, one needed more than balance, one needed rhythm. Let's just pause for a moment. Listen to the fire crackle gently as the night breathes around us. One such poet, a woman named Abina Nyansa, was renowned for her verses that could either soothe the soul or sting like a whip. Her poems spoke of rivers and storms, but everyone in the court knew exactly which chief she meant when she described the crocodile who pretends to be still. The king admired her sharp tongue, but he also feared it. It was a double-edged sword. He kept close, but never too close. Abina often found herself summoned to the palace late at night, long after the official business of the day was done. She would recite her poetry before a small, intimate group of nobles. Her performances were electric. Her voice, soft as silk, could carry to the furthest corner of the room, and her eyes burned with a knowledge that no one else dared to name aloud. She was more than just an artist. She was the court's conscience, wrapped in the beautiful, deceptive cloak of rhythm and metaphor. The priest, who measured truth by its physical weight in gold, found himself admiring how she measured it by sound. Once, after a performance that had silenced even the courtiers' usual murmurs and laughter, she approached him. She walked with a quiet confidence, her gold jewelry catching the flickering torchlight. "You weigh gold," she said, her tone a curious mix of teasing and gravity. "But do you also weigh the words that make kings rise and fall?" He offered a faint, knowing smile. "Words have no scales," he replied softly, "but they have echoes. And echoes, as you well know, can build or break empires." Their friendship was a cautious one, built on shared silences and unspoken understanding. Yet, through Abina, the priest began to glimpse the true power that pulsed beneath the surface of the court. It wasn't gold, and it wasn't armies. It was language. In the Fante world, to control a story was to control fate itself. Meanwhile, the spies moved like shadows through this intricate web of poetry and politics. A trader passing through the coastal town of Elmina brought disturbing news of European agents offering muskets in exchange for enslaved people. A messenger from a distant village carried rumors of Ashanti envoys whispering promises of a new alliance, one that could shift the balance of power in the entire region. The priest weighed these reports carefully, not on his metal scales, but in the scales of motive and consequence. He began to sense that something vast was shifting, an unseen tide pulling at the very edges of the kingdom. The trade winds, which had for generations carried goods and goodwill, had begun to carry something else, something insidious. It was the kind that smelled of salt and smoke and distant lands. Let's pause for a moment. Let the fire crackle gently as the night breathes around us. The poet Abina warned him once, her voice low and urgent as they stood in a shadowed alcove. "The gold that glitters for too long blinds the eye," she whispered. "The kings of Europe are not traders like us. They are harvesters of men." He knew she spoke the truth. Her words resonated with a chilling certainty in his soul. Yet, how could one priest warn a king whose ears were filled with the constant drone of flattery and the beat of celebratory drums? So he did what he always did. He retreated to the quiet of the temple and prayed for balance. But balance, he was beginning to learn, is a fragile thing in a world that is shifting right beneath your feet. His fears soon took a physical form. At the next royal council, foreign envoys arrived, pale men in starched linen coats that shimmered like the sea's edge. They bowed deeply, but their smiles were polished like glass, reflecting everything but revealing nothing. They brought gifts, shimmering mirrors, colorful beads, barrels of remand, a scale made of gleaming brass. When the priest was asked to examine it, his heart sank. It was beautiful, yes, but it was wrong. It was too perfect, too light. He could feel it in his hands. This scale was designed to lie sweetly, always favoring the one who gave the gift, never the one who received it. It was an instrument of subtle deception. He looked up at the king, who was completely captivated, marveling at the scale's brilliant shine. He was blind to its true nature. The poet's warning echoed in the priest's mind with the force of a thunderclap. The gold that glitters too long blinds the eye. That night, unable to sleep, he took a small piece of palm leaf and wrote a prayer, his hand steady despite the turmoil in his heart. May truth never become too light to be seen. He then went to the temple and buried the leaf beneath the floor. A silent offering, a hidden plea. Let's pause one last time. Feel the warmth of the fire as the night settles around us, as the full moon rose high above the palace, casting long, eerie shadows across the courtyard. Abina's final poem of that year echoed in the cool night air. Her voice, carried on the wind, seemed to reach every corner of the kingdom. Gold will gleam, she sang, her voice both a lament and a prophecy. But the sea remembers. Those who sell their mirrors for a fleeting advantage may one day find they have none left to see their own faces. And those who weigh deceit shall one day be weighed themselves. Her voice faded into the wind, leaving behind a profound and unsettling silence. Somewhere deep within, the priest knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, the world had already begun to tilt. History was leaning, and it was not leaning in their favor. The drums of the Fante court once echoed the rhythm of the sea breeze, gentle, deep, and sure. Along the shores of Anamabo, Elmina, and Cape Coast, a delicate harmony existed between the land and the waves. But as the centuries turned, that harmony began to fracture. The waves still crashed, but they carried new whispers, stories of sorrow, of ships that came not for gold or spices, but for human flesh. The gold that once gleamed in the hands of the king started to lose its luster, darkening like a sun vanishing behind a storm. Where merchants from the north once brought salt, and European sailors arrived with fine cloth, a new, insatiable hunger took root, a hunger that saw men and women as currency. The court of the Fante king grew heavy with unease. Every messenger returning from the coast brought back tales that shadowed their eyes. The Portuguese had left, replaced by the Dutch, and now the English flew their flags high above the coastal forts. All of them promised peace, all of them offered iron, guns, and rum, and all of them demanded more people for their burgeoning colonies across the Atlantic. At first, it seemed possible to maintain a balance. The Fante kings were masterful negotiators, born diplomats who thrived between two worlds. They could converse with the northern caravan traders in Hausa and Hegel, with the coastal Europeans in their broken English and Dutch. They signed treaties, drew invisible lines in the sand, and even sent envoys to London bearing gifts of ivory, hoping to secure their future. But trade is rarely a simple exchange. Each treaty felt like a tightening rope around their sovereignty. Every alliance was a small, incremental surrender. Soon, the gold that once bought muskets and cloth began to lose its power, replaced by a much darker coin. People, the king's advisors, would debate late into the night, their voices low and urgent under the flicker of torchlight. "Your Majesty," one elder cautioned, his voice raspy with age and worry. "These Englishmen do not trade as our fathers did. They plant their forts like seeds in our soil. Soon they will plant themselves." The king frowned, staring into his golden cup. The liquid inside swirled, a dark, uncertain vortex, mirroring the future itself. He knew the elder spoke the truth. The forts that dotted the Cape Coast Castle, Fort William, Fort Amsterdam, were no longer just trading posts. They had become something sinister. They were prisons. Beneath the whitewashed walls, in the suffocating darkness of the dungeons, the air reeked of despair, of fear, of death. The courtiers tried desperately to maintain a semblance of normalcy. Festivals were still held, and the drums still played their vibrant rhythms. But a long, cold shadow now stretched over everything. The young princes, who once trained with spears and shields, learning the arts of war and hunting, were now being taught to read complex treaties, to count barrels of rum, and to calculate the monetary worth of a human soul. down in the marketplaces, the cheerful hum of commerce began to change. The women selling salt and smoked fish would fall silent when the tall ships appeared on the horizon. Mothers instinctively clutched their children tighter. Men, once confident, walking alone, now traveled in groups for safety. The people sold into slavery were no longer just prisoners from distant wars, strangers from the north. Increasingly, they were familiar faces, neighbors, even kin. An old grandmother in a fishing village near Ankerfell was heard to say, "Gold has turned our hands yellow, but blood has turned our hearts red." Her words, potent and true, spread along the coast like the incoming tide, carried from one village fire to another until they finally reached the king's ear. And so, the very rhythm of the Fante drums began to shift. The beat was still proud, still resonant, but now it carried a new note, a deep, mournful undercurrent of sorrow. It was a somber reminder that no people can trade away their neighbors, their brothers, their sisters, forever without eventually losing a part of themselves. The storm that had been gathering for decades finally broke in the late 18th century. The European powers Britain, the Netherlands, and Denmark turned on each other, fighting for dominance on the coast. The Fante found themselves trapped in the middle, caught between warring giants. Each power demanded their loyalty. Each demanded men for their colonial wars, supplies for their forts, and gold for their far-off crowns. As if this wasn't enough, the mighty Asante Empire from the interior began to press southward, their disciplined armies hungry for control of the coast and its lucrative trade routes. The Fante Confederacy, a union of smaller kingdoms, tried to mount a resistance, a noble idea born of desperation, but perhaps too late. The king of the Fante sat in his court, the gold ornaments on his wrists feeling heavier than ever. He listened to grim reports of lost villages, burned markets, and fallen chiefs. His scribes meticulously recorded the names of the dead while outside the palace walls. The eternal sound of the ocean was now joined by the distant, thunderous echo of cannon fire. And through it all, the European forts stood silent and imposing. Their white walls gleamed in the sun, seemingly untouched by the chaos their presence had unleashed. The men inside penned letters back to their homes in Europe, writing of African disorder and tribal warfare, conveniently omitting how their own hands had stoked the flames that were now consuming the land. The king finally understood the old elder's warning from years before. The forts were not temporary guests, they were roots-deep, invasive, and now impossible to remove. In a final, defiant act of pride, the king gathered his remaining allies beneath the full moon. They stood together in the palace courtyard, their gold regalia glinting faintly in the soft light. This land, he declared, his voice ringing with conviction, was not built on iron or gunpowder. It was built on the sweat of our people, on the salt of our sea, on the rhythm of our drums. Let them take our gold, they will never, ever take our song. Those powerful words would echo for generations, long after his kingdom had fallen. When the British finally declared the Gold Coast a formal protectorate, the Fante court was officially dissolved. The great drums of the kings were silenced. But a rhythm, a culture, cannot be so easily extinguished. It did not die. It merely went underground, weaving itself into the fabric of everyday life. It survived in the songs of the fishermen as they cast their nets, in the tales told by market women, in the quiet chants of palm wine sellers at dusk. The gold had indeed turned to chains, a tragic currency that brought devastation. But the spirit of the Fante people, clever, musical, and utterly unbroken, endured. It moved with the tides, crossed vast oceans in the hearts of the displaced. and found its voice once more in distant lands, where drums still speak a universal language of struggle and survival. Even in their loss, the Fante left behind a powerful legacy of diplomacy, commerce, and profound cultural pride. They were the bridge between worlds, between the Sahara's desert winds and the Atlantic's salt air, between African autonomy and the relentless advance of European greed. Their story is a vital reminder that history is not just a tale of conquest and collapse. It is also about resilience. It is about the small, almost invisible acts of dignity that persist when kingdoms crumble. A mother hiding her child from a slave raider's grasp, a fisherman refusing to trade a neighbor for a musket, a loyal scribe burying the royal seal before foreign troops could seize it. These are the unseen victories, the quiet triumphs of the human spirit. They are the kind of victories that gold can never buy, and that the passage of time can never erase. And the drums of the Fante, they can still be heard today if you listen closely. Not in the palaces of long-gone kings, but in the joyful laughter of children playing near the sea, in the melodies sung by women selling coconuts by the roadside, in the ancient call of the conch shell at dawn. Because every people who survive great loss eventually learns this fundamental truth. Gold can fade, empires will fall, but the rhythm of a people, that steady, unyielding heartbeat beneath their stories endures forever. Welcome once more to the quiet embrace of the night, where the winds whisper through the coastal palms and the stars lean close, eager to share their ancient light. Tonight we have wandered with the Fante people, tracing the glint of gold that once adorned their courts, feeling the weight of power pressing upon their shoulders, and listening to the drums that carried both pride and sorrow across the sands and seas. The story of the Fante is not merely one of kings and gold, but of the subtle endurance of a people whose hearts beat in rhythm with the land and the ocean. In the palace halls, where gold dust glittered on robes and courtiers whispered secrets, life moved in a delicate balance between opulence and vigilance, loyalty and betrayal. Each ritual, each ceremony, each decision carried the weight of generations. It was a world shimmering with wealth, yet shadowed by the constant need for caution. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. We have seen the harsh realities that underpinned the glittering court. The same gold that symbolized wealth and divine favor was also a source of envy, conflict, and danger. Remember the priests we spoke of, measuring it with such precision, knowing that a single misstep could mean death. Kings and advisors navigated treacherous alliances and rivalries, both within their own lands and beyond. Every coin, every piece of gold, carried stories of ambition, devotion, and sometimes the sting of treachery. The oceans that connected the Fante to the wider world brought both incredible opportunity and grave peril. Traders arrived on great ships, bearing fine cloth, new weapons, and alluring promises. Their ships cast long shadows over the sand, but beneath those shadows, unseen chains began to form. The very wealth that had elevated the Fante also drew eyes of greed and instruments of oppression, slowly, almost imperceptibly, shifting the balance from prosperity to It's a timeless story. What makes you strong can also make you a target. Through the stories of the gold-weighing priests, the vigilant kings, and the ever-watchful courtiers, we recognize a profound lesson. Power and wealth are not inherently virtuous, nor is their pursuit without consequence. The Fante people, resilient and clever, demonstrated that cultural endurance often requires more than riches. It demands wisdom, foresight, and the courage to uphold communal values, especially when facing foreign pressures or internal strife. And yet, even in moments of fear, of loss, of the creeping shadows of colonial ambitions, the spirit of the Fante remained unbroken. Songs continued in the villages, markets thrummed with life, and children played beneath the same skies that had witnessed both grandeur and sorrow. This legacy of resilience is woven into the very fabric of daily life, passed silently from one generation to the next, carried in the rhythms of drumbeats, the calls to prayer, and the whispered tales told under the moonlight. The Fante experience invites us to reflect on the cycles of history, how prosperity can bring vulnerability, how vigilance must accompany privilege, and how a strong cultural identity can outlast even the mightiest empires. The palace halls may have fallen silent, the golden robes returned to dust, yet the knowledge, the songs, the wisdom, and the human spirit endure. This is the unbroken thread of African storytelling, an eternal drumbeat connecting past, present, and future, all beneath this endless sky. Let's pause here once more. The fire crackles softly, and we rest a little longer beneath the stars. As we close this chapter beneath the baobab, let us honor the invisible victories, the small, quiet acts of resilience that truly define a people more than any treasure ever could. Think of the mothers protecting their children, the fishermen refusing to betray their kin, the scribes safeguarding sacred knowledge. These acts, which seem so ordinary, become extraordinary in the face of adversity. The Fante's story reminds us that history is measured not only in gold or battles, but in courage, wisdom, and the simple, powerful endurance of the human spirit. The drums, which once echoed through grand palaces, now beat softly in village squares. In the laughter of children, in the songs sung at twilight, these rhythms are reminders that though kingdoms may rise and fall, though empires may come and go, the heartbeat of a people persists. Gold may glint and then fade, chains may bind and then break, but the essence of human resilience endures forever. So, as the night deepens, as the stars wheel across the sky, remember the lessons of the Fante, that wealth can tempt, that power can corrupt, but that wisdom, courage, and the rhythm of culture endure far beyond the rise and fall of palaces and kingdoms. In these quiet reflections, under the baobab, let the stories of gold, power, and vigilance settle into your mind like the soft glow of moonlight on calm waters. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If these stories resonate with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more tales from around the world. Until we meet again, remember the strength that lies in endurance and the wisdom that whispers on the night air. You are under baobab skies.